should have known. I should have known something was wrong when I was the only one waiting at the bus stop. Route 19 always had at least a handful of passengers, even at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. Students heading home from the library, night shift workers, the occasional drunk stumbling back from downtown. But there I stood, alone, under the flickering street light, watching my breath form clouds in the cold October air. The street was too quiet. That's what I remember most. No cars passing, no distant sirens, just silence. And that street light, buzzing and flickering above me like it was struggling to stay alive. My car had broken down 3 miles back. My phone was dead. The bus, it was my only option to get home. I checked my watch again, 11:32. The bus was late. It was never late. Route 19 ran like clockwork, every 20 minutes, all night long. I'd taken it 100 times before. But tonight felt different. That's when I heard it. The low rumble of an engine growing louder, closer. Through the fog that had settled over the street, I saw the headlights first. 2 yellow eyes, cutting through the mist. Not the bright white of modern lights, but old, dim yellow. Then the bus emerged, number 19 displayed above the windshield, in dim orange letters that seemed to flicker. The door hissed open with a sound like escaping breath. The driver sat motionless, his face hidden beneath the shadow of his cap. I hesitated, just for a moment, a primal part of my brain screaming at me to run. But it was cold. I was tired, and I just wanted to get home. I climbed aboard. The interior lights were dimmer than they should have been, casting everything in a sickly amber glow. The air inside was cold, colder than outside, and smelled faintly of something old, something stale. I paid my fare, dropping coins into the slot. They clattered down with a hollow sound that seemed to echo too long. The driver said nothing, didn't even look at me. I could see his hands on the wheel, though, pale and thin, with fingers that seemed just a bit too long. "Thanks," I said, my voice sounding too loud in the silence. Nothing, not even a nod. I moved toward the back of the bus, my footsteps loud on the rubber floor. Each step echoed. That's when I realized something that made my skin crawl. I wasn't alone. There were other passengers, 7 of them, scattered throughout the bus, sitting perfectly still. None of them had been visible through the windows when the bus pulled up. I took a seat halfway back, across the aisle from a woman in a blue coat. Her hands were folded in her lap, her eyes staring straight ahead at nothing. Her face was pale, too pale. I tried to make eye contact, maybe offer a polite nod, but she didn't move, didn't even blink, just stared forward with glassy, unseeing eyes. The bus lurched forward, and we began moving through the empty streets. I looked out the window, trying to orient myself, but nothing. Nothing looked familiar. The buildings we passed were dark and abandoned, their windows like hollow eye sockets. Street signs were present but unreadable, the letters seeming to shift and blur when I tried to focus on them. My heart was pounding now, heavy and fast in my chest. I pulled the cord to signal my stop. The bell didn't ring. I pulled it again, harder this time. Nothing. My hands were shaking. "Excuse me," I called toward the driver, my voice trembling. "I need to get off at Maple Street." No response. The other passengers remained motionless, like mannequins. I stood up, gripping the pole for balance as the bus swayed. My unease was growing with each step, each breath. "Sir, I need to get off," I said louder, desperation creeping into my voice. "Please." The driver's head turned, slowly, mechanically, toward me. And that's when I saw his face. Beneath the shadow of his cap was something wrong. His features seemed flat, two-dimensional, like a photograph of a person, rather than an actual person. "Route 19 runs all night," he said in a voice that sounded like it was coming from far, far away, "until it reaches the end." "What end?" My voice cracked. "Where are we going?" He didn't answer, just turned back to the road. I looked out the front window and felt my blood turn to ice. We weren't in my city anymore. We weren't anywhere I recognized. The road stretched ahead into an impossibly thick fog, and on either side I could see shapes moving in the darkness. Tall, thin shapes that walked on too many legs. Oh God! I stumbled backward, bumping into one of the seats. The man sitting there didn't react. I looked at him closely for the first time and noticed his clothes. They were old-fashioned, from maybe the 1950s. His suit was immaculate, but colorless in the dim light. Then I noticed something else, something that made my stomach drop. His chest wasn't moving. He wasn't breathing. No. I checked the woman in the blue coat. Same thing. No breath, no movement except for the swaying of the bus. I went from passenger to passenger, my hands shaking, my heart racing. The horror built with each confirmation. None of them were alive, but they weren't quite dead either. They were something else, something in between. "What is this?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "What's happening to me?" "They're passengers," the driver said, without turning around. "Like you. They all got on Route 19. They all needed to get somewhere, and now they're going to the end of the line. I don't understand." My voice rose to a shout. "Let me off this bus. Now, right now." "Can't stop except at designated stops," he replied, in that distant, hollow voice. "Next stop isn't for a while yet." I ran to the back door and tried to force it open. It wouldn't budge. I slammed my fists against the glass, panic rising in my chest like bile. "Let me out! Let me out!" But it didn't even vibrate. It was like hitting solid steel, like hitting a wall. I pulled out my phone, forgetting it was dead. But when I looked at the screen, something impossible stared back at me. The date was wrong. It read October 14th, 2043. "No," I muttered, shaking my head. No. This isn't real. This can't be real. I'm dreaming. I have to be dreaming." I looked at the woman in the blue coat again, really looked at her. There was something pinned to her lapel, a small button with a date on it. October 9th, 1957. The man across from her had a newspaper on his lap, yellowed and brittle. I could just make out the date, March 3rd, 1982. They were all from different times, different years, different decades, different lives. All of them had gotten on Route 19, and none of them had ever gotten off. The bus began to slow. Through the fog, I could see lights ahead, a bus stop glowing with that same sickly amber light. The bus pulled up beside it, and the doors hissed open like a serpent's warning. Someone was waiting there, a teenage girl in a varsity jacket, texting on her phone. She looked up, saw the bus, and smiled with relief. She climbed aboard without hesitation. "Don't," I shouted, rushing toward her. "Get off the bus. Please, you have to get off." She couldn't hear me. Or maybe she could hear me, but couldn't understand me, like I was speaking a language that didn't exist yet. She paid her fare and found a seat near the front. The moment she sat down, she went still. Perfectly. Unnaturally. Still. Her phone slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor, but she didn't reach for it. She just stared ahead with empty eyes, just like the others. just like I would be soon. The doors closed with a finality that felt like a coffin lid. We started moving again. "Why?" I asked the driver, tears streaming down my face now. "Why are you doing this? What did we do to deserve this?" "I'm not doing anything," he said softly, and for the first time, there was something almost sad in his voice. "I'm just the driver. Been the driver of Route 19 for longer than time has meaning. This bus has a route, and the route must be completed. Where does it end?" I was sobbing now, my voice raw. "Please, just tell me where it ends." For the first time, something like emotion crossed his flat, wrong face. It might have been pity, or perhaps remembrance of his own journey long ago. "You'll see," he said quietly. "We're almost there." The fog began to clear, and what I saw made me wish, desperately wish, for the fog to return. We were traveling down a road that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. On the left side, I could see my city as it looked now, with its modern buildings and LED streetlights, but the image flickered like a broken television, and beneath it, I could see the same streets as they looked decades ago, then centuries ago, then not built at all. Just empty fields and forests under alien stars. On the right side, the view was even worse. I could see the future, or futures plural. Cities crumbling and being rebuilt in strange geometries. Seas rising and swallowing the land. Structures that hurt to look at. Architecture that defied physics. And through it all, Route 19 kept running, the bus keeping its eternal schedule through every moment that ever was or ever would be. "Time doesn't work the same here," I said, my voice hollow with realization. "This bus, it's not in normal space. It's somewhere else, somewhere between." "Between," the driver confirmed softly. "Route 19 runs between moments, between places, between life and what comes after. Most people never notice. They get on, they get off at their stop, and they never know they spent a few seconds outside of time. But sometimes the route runs longer. Sometimes people don't have a stop to get off at anymore." "I have a stop," I insisted, desperation making my voice crack. "Maple Street. I have a home, a life, people waiting for me, my family, my friends. Do you?" The question hit me like a knife to the chest. I tried to remember, tried so hard to remember why I'd been out so late, where I'd been going, who was waiting for me at home. But the memories were slippery, like trying to hold on to smoke, like trying to remember a dream after waking. I remembered my car breaking down. I remembered walking. But before that, I couldn't quite grasp it. There was something about a hospital. Bright lights overhead. Voices speaking in hushed, urgent tones. The steady beep of a monitor. And then a long, continuous tone that seemed to stretch on forever. "No," I said, backing away from the thought, my breath coming in gasps. "No, I'm alive. I'm here. I can feel my heart beating. I can feel the air in my lungs." "You are here," the driver agreed softly, with terrible gentleness. "But that doesn't mean what you think it means." I slumped into a seat, my mind reeling. I looked at my hands. They seemed solid enough. I could feel my heart beating, feel the air moving in and out of my lungs. But was I feeling those things? Or was I just remembering them? Replaying the sensation of being alive? The bus made another stop. This time, an elderly man got on, leaning heavily on a cane. He had a hospital bracelet on his wrist. He paid his fare with trembling hands and sat down near the front. Within seconds, he went still, just like all the others. How many? I asked quietly, defeated. How many passengers has Route 19 collected? Every single one that was meant to ride it, the driver said, across all times, all places. The bus is always running somewhere, somewhen, picking up those who are ready for the journey, those whose routes have ended. I'm not ready, I whispered, my voice breaking completely. Please, I'm not ready. Nobody thinks they are. But the bus doesn't come unless the route is already set, unless the journey is already over. I stood up again, desperation giving me one last surge of energy. There had to be a way off. There had to be. I examined every window, every door, every panel. The other passengers watched me now, I realized. Their heads hadn't moved, but their eyes followed my movements, all of them hollow and empty and sad, so terribly sad. Please, I begged them, tears flowing freely. Help me. You must remember what it was like. You must remember wanting to go home, wanting to live. The woman in the blue coat's mouth moved, slowly, painfully, forming words that came out as barely a whisper. There is no going back, she said, and I could hear the sorrow in her voice, the acceptance. Only forward, to the end of the line. We all reach it eventually. Where? I turned back to the driver, my voice raw with emotion. Where is the end of the line? He didn't answer. Instead, pointed ahead with one long, pale finger. Through the windshield, I could see something massive rising from the fog. At first, I thought it was a building, but as we got closer, I realized it was far, far larger than any structure humans had ever built. And I knew, God help me, I knew what it was. It was a terminal, a bus terminal that stretched up into infinity and outward beyond the horizon. Thousands upon thousands of buses were pulling in and out, all of them bearing different route numbers. Route 7, Route 42, Route 99, an endless fleet of vehicles, carrying passengers to an end I could barely comprehend. The final station, the driver said softly, where all routes eventually lead. What happens there? My voice was barely a whisper now, trembling with fear and something else. Something that might have been acceptance beginning to creep in. You get off the bus, he said simply. You move on to whatever comes next. Different for everyone. Some find peace, some find reunion, some find answers, but everyone gets off eventually. I don't want to get off, I said, my voice cracking with desperation. I want to go back. I want to go home. Please, I just want to go home. The driver was quiet for a long moment. I could hear the hum of the engine, the whisper of the wheels on the impossible road. Then he spoke, and for the first time, his voice sounded almost human, almost kind. There was an accident, he said gently, carefully. Your car didn't just break down. You swerved to avoid something in the road. A deer, I think. Lost control. The car rolled 3 times before hitting a tree. You felt the impact. You remember that, don't you? If you really try. I did. God help me. I did. The sickening crunch of metal, the world spinning, the feeling of weightlessness as the car flipped, the sharp, blinding pain in my chest. That had suddenly stopped, leaving an odd sense of floating. And then, walking down the dark road in my torn clothes, seeing the bus stop, seeing the light, not understanding why I felt so light, so free. The hospital, I whispered, the memories flooding back now like a dam breaking. I remember the hospital, the lights, the voices. They were saying my name. They were trying to bring me back. They were shouting. And then, silence. The doctors tried. the driver said, his voice gentle, full of a compassion I hadn't heard before. They tried for 47 minutes, but some journeys end, and when they do, Route 19 is always running, always ready to take passengers where they need to go. It's a kindness, really, so no one has to make this journey alone. I felt tears on my face, though I wasn't sure if I could actually cry anymore. Around me, the other passengers watched with their hollow eyes, and I understood now. They weren't judging, they weren't mocking, they were sympathizing. They had all been where I was. They had all fought the same realization, felt the same fear, experienced the same desperate denial. My family, I said, my voice breaking completely, tears flowing freely. They'll be waiting for me. My mum, my dad, they'll be so worried. They'll wonder why I never came home, why I never called. They will grieve, the driver acknowledged quietly, honestly, and it will hurt them deeply, but they will eventually heal. That's the gift of the living. Time heals them, and you will move on. That's the gift of this bus. No one rides alone. No one suffers. The journey just continues. The terminal was closer now. I could see figures moving within it, countless souls in transit. Some looked peaceful, serene even. Others looked confused like I felt. But all of them were moving forward, accepting, going wherever they were meant to go next. None of them looked back. I looked at the woman in the blue coat one more time. She was smiling now, just a little, a sad, understanding maternal smile, like she'd been waiting years to see someone else finally understand. "Does it hurt?" I asked her, my voice small and scared, like a child asking about the dark. Moving on. "Does it hurt?" "No," she whispered, and her voice was kind, so kind. It's like waking up from a very long dream. "You'll see, sweetheart. You'll see. It's beautiful on the other side." The bus pulled into the terminal. The massive doors opened with a sound like distant thunder, like the universe taking a breath. The driver pulled the brake and turned to face me fully. I could see him clearly now. His features were no longer flat and strange. He looked like a normal man, tired but kind, someone who had been doing a difficult job for a very, very long time, someone who cared about every passenger he carried. "End of the line," he said gently, almost apologetically. "Route 19 terminates here. All passengers must disembark." The other passengers stood, moving for the first time since they'd gone still. The woman in the blue coat stepped into the aisle. The elderly man with the cane stood straighter, the pain gone from his posture, a smile on his weathered face. The teenage girl picked up her phone, looked at it once, then left it on the seat with a small, peaceful smile. "Everyone is," the driver said softly, and there was such kindness in his voice, such understanding. "But I've been driving this route for a very long time, and I've never, not once, seen anyone regret getting off. It's the staying on that causes pain, the refusing to move forward. That's what hurts, holding on when it's time to let go." I stood on shaking legs. The door was open, waiting. Beyond it, I could see light. Warm light, not the sickly amber of the bus. Real light, golden light, welcoming light. And I could hear something. A sound I couldn't quite identify, but that filled me with an emotion I hadn't felt since getting on the bus. Hope. I walked to the door, stood at the threshold between one world and the next. I looked back at the driver one last time. "Will you ever stop driving?" I asked. He smiled, a real smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes and made him look human, truly, beautifully human. When the last passenger has been delivered safely, he said. When there are no more souls that need the journey. Until then, Route 19 keeps running. Someone has to keep the lights on, keep the schedule, make sure everyone gets where they need to go. Everyone deserves a safe journey home. Everyone deserves kindness at the end. Thank you, I said, and I meant it with everything I had left. Thank you for getting me here safely, for not letting me be alone. It's my job, he said warmly, his eyes shining with emotion. And you're very welcome. Now go on. They're waiting for you. They've been waiting such a long time. Who? My voice was small, hopeful. Everyone who got off before you. Everyone who loved you. Everyone who's been holding a place for you, keeping it warm. His smile grew, genuine and beautiful. This isn't an ending, you know. It's a transfer point. Route 19 ends here, but your journey continues on a different line. And it's a beautiful line. You'll see. I promise you'll see. I took a deep breath, or the memory of a breath, and stepped off the bus. The moment my foot touched the terminal floor, everything changed. The fear, it vanished. Just gone. Like it had never existed. The confusion lifted like fog in the morning sun. I could remember everything now. My whole life. Every moment, good and bad. Every laugh, every tear. Every person I'd loved. Every mistake I'd made. Every victory I'd celebrated. And none of it hurt anymore. It was just part of the journey. Just part of the route that had led me here. And it was beautiful. All of it. Even the painful parts. And I understood. Finally, I understood. I turned to wave at the driver, but the bus was already pulling away, heading back out into the fog. I watched it go, its taillights disappearing into the mist like a dream fading. Somewhere, right now, someone else was standing at a bus stop, seeing those lights approach, about to begin their own journey on Route 19. I hoped they wouldn't be too afraid. I hoped they would understand, like I finally did, that the bus wasn't something to fear. It was just transport, a kindness really, a mercy, a way to get from one place to another when the regular routes no longer ran, a way to make sure nobody had to make this journey alone. Nobody had to walk into the unknown without a guide. I turned back to the terminal. The crowd of souls moved around me, each on their own journey, each heading somewhere beautiful. And in the crowd, oh God, in the crowd, I saw faces I recognized. My grandmother, who had passed when I was 12, she was smiling at me, crying tears of joy, reaching out with arms I remembered from childhood. My best friend from high school, who died too young in a motorcycle accident. He was laughing, waving, calling my name like no time had passed at all. And others, so many others, all smiling at me with joy and welcome and love. So much love. I started walking toward them, my steps growing lighter with each pace. Behind me, I heard the distant rumble of a bus engine. Route 19, picking up another passenger, taking them safely to where they needed to go. The driver, kind and patient, beginning the journey again. The route would always run. The driver would always be there. And when someone stood alone at a dark bus stop, scared and confused, wondering if they would ever get home, Route 19 would arrive right on time, always on time, because everyone, eventually, needs to get to the end of the line. And some routes, the most important ones, run forever between the spaces we know, making sure no soul ever has to make that journey alone, making sure everyone gets home safely, making sure there's always light at the end of the road. I walked into the light, surrounded by love, ready for whatever came next. Behind me, the terminal faded. Ahead, something new was beginning. A new route, a new journey, and I was no longer afraid. The last thing I heard was the distant ring of a bus bell and the gentle hiss of doors closing. Route 19 was back on schedule, running through the night, waiting for its next passenger. It's always running. Somewhere, somewhen. In the space between heartbeats, in the moment between breaths, in the pause between one life and the next. And when your time comes, when you find yourself alone at a strange bus stop with no other way home, don't be afraid. Pay your fare, take your seat, and trust that the driver knows the way. He's been driving for a very long time, and he's never lost a passenger yet. We all ride Route 19 eventually, every single one of us, and the driver, the kind, patient, eternal driver, always gets us safely to where we need to go. Always.